So joining me now is Tony Wang, T. Rowe Price Science and Tech Fund Portfolio Manager. Top holdings include Alphabet and IBM, which both report this week. So, Tony, it's great to have you back on. And let's start right there. What are you watching from Alphabet?
Yeah, so I think that, Google is at a crossroads here with a new technology coming out with generative AI. I think of it as like, Google search, like a librarian goes and looks through the books and gives you a bunch of books, and then you have to figure out kind of the answer. And then generative AI is like the librarian is like an expert, and they can kind of tell you off the top of the head. And so, I think that what we're going to be looking for on the long term, and the market probably is looking at this, is that what that search revenue does as they do more AI mode, and then how do you think about their kind of, CapEx spend, and whether they're going to have a really creative result as due to that. So, I think there's a few things, but the most biggest thing is like, the disruption risk behind ChatGPT that's likely coming.
IBM has been just a stealth, and maybe not even stealth at this point. It's just been hitting new all-time highs and has been on a tear recently. Does that continue?
Well, I think that what you have with IBM is that it was a value idea that was getting better. And so the mix improved to more consulting infrastructure software. I think that what they're doing with the consulting arm is essentially they themselves are customer zero. So they figure out how to use AI, and then they teach it to their clients. And so I think that, that has been an improving story. And so they've got multiple levers, and they've done a lot of M&A to essentially like improve the returns in the business. And so I think that's why the stock has worked well, and perhaps is set up better than people expect.
How about Tesla?
I think for Tesla, what matters is autonomous driving. And when you think about their AI first, camera first approach, like that's very differentiated. And so when they're launching Robotaxi and they're seeing some success, I think the market likes that. And when you think about it, like, what they're doing is really game changing if AI and camera can replace a lot of the sensors in the car that the rest of the field has taken on. So, to me, it's less about how well the car business does, in terms of how many Model Ys are sold, because that kind of has been more mature. It's more about their innovation pipeline and how to think about that bigger TAM around AI and robotics.
What do you think about the semi space, especially after we got NXP results earlier this hour, where they basically beat across the board, but the stock's still under pressure here, and as we get Intel, which we know continues to be a turnaround story under a new CEO?
Yeah, well, semis has had a really big run. And so when you think about that in the context, expectations are obviously going to be a lot higher in the near term. When you think about the cycle, though, like the broader industrial cycle, TI and XPI, they are guiding to improving fundamentals. I think the real question is, the valuation, has the market gone ahead of itself? I think that's what you're alluding to. But, overall, long term, like there should be more demand for industrial semis. The issue is that China, that was a big tailwind over the last 10 years, could be more of a headwind or even a flat market. And so I think that's what people are wrestling with. In terms of Intel, I mean, that is a really big turnaround story. I think that's a little bit more idiosyncratic versus what's rest going on in the cycle. To me, they've really got to fix the tick-tock, working on architecture was the node. So I think that, we are excited to hear what Lip-Bu has to unveil in terms of what his priorities are to get the product roadmap back on track, to, how are they going to attack AI, and then, how are they going to stabilize the balance sheet and cut costs so that Intel's in a better position.